everybody, and welcome to the False Prophets podcast. I'm your host, Phil Rizdon, and I don't know the title of this week's episode, so I'm not going to be naming it, okay? We're going to see what's going on. Yeah, I know I've been gone for a while. I'm trying to get back up to the two times a week, but your boy's been busy. I've been working, I've been doing my whole thing. I've been out here, okay? I've been out in these streets, boy. Shout out to all the listeners and the watchers who are steadily hanging on there. And I am going to be putting down more content, so it's all good. What's up, what's up, what's up? First comes first, a few updates on some things. There was a new update on Jamie Foxx. They are saying he is still being hospitalized and he is not in good condition. So I just want to say prayers up for the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jamie Foxx. If you don't know, he suffered a stroke a few weeks ago on set of one of his movies. And ever since then, he's been hospitalized. And I don't think he has any signs. He hasn't. I don't think he's woken up or anything. So this is very very serious, and this is serious for me too. I mean, obviously I don't know Jamie Foxx at all, but if you're my age, I'm 31. If you're my age, he was definitely a role model, especially for other black comedians and black actors and black musicians. He does everything. Sorry, I got caught up in the fact that I was like, wait, actor, comedian, musician. I was like, damn, he does everything. Yeah, if you are a black artist of any type, you definitely looked up to Jamie Foxx. Shoot, if you are a artist in general of any type, you probably looked up to Jamie Foxx, but especially to young black men and women. He was definitely a real role model. I mean, I first knew him from the Jamie Foxx show, and then I got into his stand-up comedy, and then I saw him, do that roast a couple years back, I believe, with Shaq and everything, and he's just amazing. And then on top of that is acting. He was in Collateral, which is one of my favorite movies with Tom Cruise. Such a good movie, such a good movie. In so many amazing films. Ray, obviously, as well too, which I believe won him an Oscar. Which is incredible, and obviously his music too. He's just an inspiration. I remember watching him on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee one time, and he was talking about just getting into Hollywood and talking about his hustle and just talking about all the years that he put in. And it's nice to see people who really went through the process of like really putting themselves out there and working hard on a daily basis and really see it come to fruition, because there's a lot of people who put in a lot of work and don't get anything out of it. I think that's a big thing, a big misconception in the art industry, I guess, the mainstream industry, whether it's music, film, stand-up comedy, live performance, whatever. I think a lot of people just think that you pop up, and especially now with social media, everybody thinks like, oh yeah, you just create a TikTok dance, and next thing you know, you're presenting at the Oscars. And yeah, sometimes that does happen, but for the most part, it really is just you steadily chipping away at the world and trying to break through that wall and get to mainstream success, or at least enough success to pay your bills. So the fact that Jamie Foxx went so far while doing that and while working hard and was so immensely talented at so many different things at once, I think he just needs his flowers. You know what I mean? And he needs respect. And obviously, there's not much any of us can do, but I'm definitely praying for him. I'm definitely praying for him. Sorry to start things off so emotionally. I just just really hit me how much he matters to me and stuff. And I was talking to him. I was talking about him in the last episode, and we've been talking about how dispensable black artists are very often. And I think this kind of feeds into it, So I think that's why this really, really affected me. But there's, hopefully he gets through this. Hopefully he wakes up. Hopefully he takes time for himself and for his family and for his friends. Hopefully, after he wakes up, he really embraces all the things that he's done and maybe decides to slow down. That's it's a big thing in media, and it's just a big thing of anybody who has real ambitions to be a great person. You work yourself to the bone no matter what, and I think stuff like this can be the result of that. So prayers up to Jamie. Prayers up to Jamie. We're gonna do some more updates too. Quick update on the whole Jonathan Majors thing. I'm pretty much done with all that stuff. I mean, it doesn't involve me. Obviously, when it comes to stuff like any sort of abuse and stuff, I don't want to harp on it because it doesn't involve me. I'm not a part of their thing. But it was a very interesting thing to talk about because it definitely did kind of hurt me in a way, hurt me to see how everybody seemed to abandon him when all these things come out. And now, even after the text messages, that he released, which looked okay, but not so good, depending, if you're a defender of his, they look okay. If you're someone who's against him, you're like, well, see, um, it was a lot of stuff there that I felt maybe his legal team should have held that, but that's neither here nor there. What's really happening now is uh, his his lawyer has spoken out, and now that he doesn't want anything to do with this woman, apparently, the story is seeming to come together a little bit more, and it's a little bit more cohesive. And they also do have on record a medical doctor that did see the woman. I'm not sure if it was on the day of the incident. I'm not sure if this was the medical examiner or the doctor who was there at the hospital. These are all things that I don't fully know. But this doctor seemed to have reported no injuries on this woman whatsoever, and basically saying that whatever possible injuries she did have are not consistent with what was reported in the incident. And so they're trying to get this whole case dropped. And I'm wondering what's going to happen. Like I said, I really don't know the full extent of either side, but it is shaping up to seem as if this was just some sort of spat. They were together, but not really. Probably, he was probably just casually dating her. She's slapping him. Because he called the cops. That's the thing. People keep forgetting he called the police. Um, and he called the police because she was wiling out. So she probably was hitting him. He took his phone. He took his phone from her. Whether or not he did that in a very physical way or in a non-physical way, we do not know just yet. Um, but that's really what caused the whole thing, and it's sad to see how far this has gone, especially too because it seems like this is something relatively small, and then you see all these other actors. You see people like they're taking Jonathan Majors away from being Kang the Conqueror, and they're getting rid of him on all these movies. Yet you see people like Ezra Miller still getting released as the Flash and being the face as the Flash, and possibly maybe even not being replaced as a Flash in the future. They said they were going to, but now a lot of Warner Brothers executives and a couple people on the crew as well have said that Ezra Miller is actually in recovery, which seems like, and no one said anything explicitly, I'll say that, but it seems like they're kind of floating around the vibe of he's doing better, he's doing better, he's doing better, so that if they decide not to replace him, it'll seem okay as if he's gotten better. Um, that being said, I mean, he has hit three women. He's had three different assault charges or domestic charges of some sort for physical violence of some sort, and they're all from women. They're not from men. And he also did happen to go on the road with a young woman who had just turned 18. That's why I said go on the road and not necessarily say kidnapping, because her parents feel like it is kidnapping, and there's definitely some grooming there. He apparently knew this woman since she was about 12 years old. So there is definitely a lot of grooming, plenty of it. Anybody wants seconds of that grooming? There's plenty of it over there. There's plenty left over, tons. And these are all things that he went through, and he's still allowed. Didn't actually scratch that. These aren't things that he went through. These are things that he did, or allegedly did, and yet he still gets to keep all his stuff. He still gets to keep all his things. Meanwhile, Jonathan Majors has one long night with a girl that he's casually with, and his whole career is over. And these are the things that we're kind of talking about, where there are definitely two sides of Hollywood, and the black side ain't so fun. But it is what it is, guys. Just remember, when you're dating people and stuff, whether or not you're trying to do art or you're trying to be ambitious in life or not, just in general for everybody walking the streets, the person you're with and the people that you surround yourself with, they matter. And you can never forget that. You can never get too big for the people you surround yourself with not to matter. No matter how big you are, Jay-Z's a billionaire. If he starts hanging around complete morons who do wild shit like, throw stuff at people during the Met Gala and start fights everywhere, then yeah, that's going to start trickling down to Jay-Z. That's why he cut off so many people, right? We've seen it. We've seen him cut off so many people. I mean, damn, Jay's even damn near cut off Kanye, pretty much. So the list doesn't end, really. And I think that's a testament to the success you have to have when you're black. The success you have when you're black is a different type of success. It's a lonelier success. Success is always lonely because in order to be successful, you have to dedicate so much of your time, attention, and your love for everything else to that. So it's always going to be a lonelier battle. But when you are someone black and everything you do and every little perception that comes from any of your friends or a girl you're with comes down on you, then it becomes very lonely because you have to start cutting things off. Sometimes you even have to start cutting things off before they happen. I've had to stop hanging out with friends before anything bad happens just because I saw one or two red flags and I was like, I can't let this get worse. Oh, some guy says the wrong thing at the bar and my friend's now getting aggressive with this guy. Little does he know, like, that guy, isn't important today, but that guy can be important tomorrow. Or he sparks a fight with the guy at the bar, and they're yelling at each other. They're almost at a fist fight. It's like, yeah, that guy doesn't matter. But what if you do this next time, and the guy who's next to us is a national headlining comedian who just saw me do a set and would be willing to take me on the road, but now because you threatened him, he doesn't want to fuck with you, and he definitely doesn't want to fuck with me. You can't have those situations, and I think Jonathan Majors, really needs to look at his circle and see what's going on. But the problem is, a lot of times you have to do things alone especially in the arts too, because people aren't as ambitious. So he might not even have a circle, which is the most difficult part to navigate. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But let's move on to some other stuff. Let's move on to something a little bit brighter. A little bit nicer. Jack Harlow has just released his new album, Jackman, and white people are ecstatic. Jesus, you would have thought Obama got elected for a third term. This stuff is wild. It's a great album though. It is a really, really good album, I will say. He's doing really great. His last album that came out, which was, I believe, even slightly less than a year ago. So I like his energy, his tenacity. I think that's a really, really good thing. And what I think I like about Jack Harlow, what I think will cause him to be a very long-lasting entity in the hip-hop game is the fact that he's the first white rapper who seems to really want to be a rapper, besides Eminem. You know what I mean? He's the first white rapper to really want to be a rapper. I would even stick Mac Miller in there. Mac Miller was definitely a spitter. I mean, he would get into more melodic type stuff and really interesting music as well too. But he loved hip hop and has such a tremendous respect for it. But that's really only three. I think it's perfect timing for Jack Harlow because we need another white rapper. Like, it's been that long. Like, Eminem came out over 20 years ago. There's been this gap waiting for the new guy to come, and I feel like that's what it's been like. People are waiting to see who this next guy is. The hard thing about being a white rapper, I think, is that you get caught in a paradigm, and the paradigm is the two sides of Eminem, the hyper lyrical and the very comedic and weird and silly. You have the hyper lyrical type dudes, the Diabolics, the Ill Will type people. These are like super underground guys. And then you have the silly side, which is more like the Lil Dicky or honestly anybody that tries to like kind of make jokes. Either of those sides don't don't lead to mainstream success because you're not making hits, and I think that's what's so interesting about Jack Harlow. He's not as insecure, I think, about his place in hip hop. Um, with a lot of white rappers, I think the whole like you're a guest here thing really sits on their shoulders a lot, which I think is why they go into hyper spitter mode or jokey guy mode, because that creates kind of a shield. It's like, all right, well, I'm a guest here, so if I'm a guest here, I'm gonna have to be the most lyrical, lyrical miracle ass motherfucker out here, so people know that I really care about the art of this shit. You know what I mean? And then on the other funny side, they're like, oh well, I'm a guest here, so if I'm a guest here, I don't want to take up space for like serious black people doing serious things, talking about the seriousness of their black plight. I'd rather more just be comedic. So like, people don't really take me seriously and know that I'm not here to illegitimize their art. I think those are two good points, but at the same time, hits don't get made with that type of thinking. I think Jack Harlow, although he does revere somebody like Eminem, he sees Eminem as a role model for opening things up. I think he's actually much closer to a Drake style. I think he's not trying to go for the lyrical miracle, and he's not trying to go for the funny. He's trying to go for the lover boy kind of style, the style of that all the girls like, the shit that girls want to see, while still being a spitter. Which is what I think is perfect. I think that's where you need to be. I think he's trying to go with, listen, I'm not the most lyrical guy in the world. I'm not the best lyricist ever, but I'm smooth as fuck, and I still have bars. And I still have bars. And I think his bars are getting better too. I think he's a very lyrical guy, but it's one of those things that he doesn't put at the forefront. He's really just trying to make music that sounds good. And I think if you are a white rapper just trying to simply make music that sounds good, that's the route to go. But that's just my 2 cents. I really loved it. I really loved the album. I've listened to it all the way through twice so far. It's pretty short actually. It's not very long. It's not very long. The songs aren't very long either. His first one, Common Ground, was really really good. And what I think I really like about him too is, again, his authenticity as well too. I think he's not afraid to say that he comes from the suburbs, but he can still look at it through the lens, like through an emotional lens. I think, which is really great, and I think it can cause a lot of relatability, which is fantastic. I think, a lot of other white rappers, when they get into the game, they try to just go with black culture because they're almost ashamed of their culture. Or they say that, like, they kind of look at it like, well, if I just say I'm from the suburbs, then I have nothing to really say. Or if I say I'm from the suburbs, it has to be like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge type shit where it's like, I'm playing the corny white guy because I'm from the suburbs. And it's like, you don't really have to do that, dude. I mean, like, dude, people in the suburbs still have parents that drink too much. People in the suburbs still have, family that are neglectful. People in the suburbs sometimes don't always have that much money. Even if they don't live in a project building, they're still struggling. So you might have had to see your father or your mother sitting over bills crying one night. These are all real things that it doesn't just exist in the hood. I think him willing to just put those things out there and put in the hypocrisy as well too, and shit of the suburbs and suburban living was a really cool thing, and it brought you into it. And I think white rappers need to be doing that. A lot of white rappers trying to be like, well, who am I? And it's like all that takes is just some emotional studying, some emotional awareness. And it seems like that's something that Jack Harlow seems to have tenfold. He had some really, really great stuff in there. I think Common Ground is the first one. That was a great intro. I think number 2 is Ambition, or number 2 is They Don't Love It. Great one too. He really spits hard in that one. Ambition's the third one. I also love that song, Gang Gang, which is definitely a deeper song and a realer song, especially today. I mean, we were just talking about Jonathan Majors. Gang Gang speaks about, abuse, essay more than, any sort of domestic dispute, but it speaks about that type of stuff and basically Jack Harlow comes home for the holidays and then hears about one of his friends that is now in trouble for this stuff. And then the second verse is hearing about another friend who's in trouble for shit that's even worse. After the end of the second verse, he kind of talks about how, you say it's family to the end and taking a bullet for somebody and everything, but sometimes things come out about people that make you feel foolish for having even thought that you could be friends with that person. How you got to pull pictures down now because of who they are and decide who you think they are now too, because at the end of the day they are family. You did get raised right next to them, and what all of that means. And I feel like that's a really, really interesting thing, and I love to see people talk about this stuff, man. And from both sides, whether it's female, a woman talking about this stuff, or a man talking about this stuff, or even from a side of I believe everything that any victim says, or I'm not so sure about everything that every victim says. I like hearing the discourse. My thing is, because a lot of people get upset at me about stuff and they feel like I don't believe women or anything like that. That's not true at all. What I believe in, though, is real discourse about things and really being able to talk about things and not simply taking shit on face value. Nowadays, a lot of women know that they have a self-destruct button on a man's life, especially if you're a black man. So I do like to have these talks, and that's why I thought his stuff was very, very healthy to get out. I think that a lot more men, too, need to have these talks about what they can accept from their friends and finding out who their friends are. All your friends are a reflection of you. That's a classic line, but it's there's nothing more true than that. And as I've gotten older, I just found myself constantly re-examining my friend group, because there are times, bro, where you will find out some fucked up shit about one of your boys, and you're like, I did not think that was him, and you do have to cut them off. Like I do want to adamantly say that. Like I'm not the type of guy who just like randomly is like some sort of apologist for anybody that does anything. It's not like that. Like there are plenty of people that I've cut off because I've heard things, I've seen things, and I've put together enough information about that person to make an educated guess as if this shit is real, and I have pulled away from them. Sometimes you really need to do that. Especially because sometimes the connections you have with somebody at such a young age can breed a toxic relationship in the future. You collect Pokemon cards with a motherfucker when you're 7 years old, and now you're 35, and this guy's weird, or he's just mean and shitty and he's manipulative, but because of your past you put all that shit to the side and keep being this person's friend, and that does not always need to happen. And yeah, I think that's honestly one of my favorite tracks on the album. Not necessarily for it just being good or anything, but how it's more thought provoking. And how people need to, really examine their friends and the people that they hang out with and decide if that's worth it to keep these people in your circle. Go check out that album. Definitely go check out that album. A lot of great tracks on there. Very, very entertaining. I like how he seems to know himself in a certain way, or at least try to put himself out there. And another thing too, what I think is very interesting about Jack Harlow, that I think really makes him a person who's going to be a serious contender in years. Mark my words, I'm serious. He really is. I don't think he's going to fade away. One thing I think it really gives him staying power is that he actually wants to be a rapper. I think that needs to be said a lot. A lot of people, when it comes to black culture, but especially hip hop, there is a habit with hip hop culture where a white person will come in, make a few songs with a couple rappers, get their shit bumped up as a rapper, and then they're like, all right, I'm going to pick up a guitar, and I'm actually not a rapper. I didn't want any touch of this shit. And they never do any collaboration with any black people ever again, and it all goes away, and now they're at Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean? And he just doesn't seem to be that way, which I really respect. I don't mean that he doesn't want to do anything mainstream. I mean, he did Industry Baby. I'm sure he's going to end up doing some song with fucking like Dua Lipa or some shit. I'm not saying any of that. He can make songs on Z100, in the Billboard Top 10. I'm sure he's going to do a feature with Taylor Swift someday, and every white person in the world is going to come in their pants simultaneously. I'm not saying any of that, but I am saying that he still wants to stick to the roots of the thing that he aspired to be as a kid. You see people like Post Malone, where it's like that dude was on fire. When he came out, what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? It was huge. He was doing songs with Quavo and all sorts of shit and talking about foreigns and driving foreign cars and this, that, and the third and blah, 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 right? And then after what, his like second or third album, right? That's when he starts talking about, like, actually, I'm not really a rapper. I'm more just like a songwriter. I'm more of like a pop artist, blah, blah, blah. And now he's, doing this thing. And that's what I'm saying. It's like people want to use this shit over and over again to get where they want to be and then leave it behind. And I think Jack Harlow just isn't that type of guy. And also, too, I feel like when you do that type of stuff, sorry, my nose is so itchy. It's like, I don't know if it's a nervous tick I have because of the podcast, or it's just because I'm talking so much. My mustache hairs are like tickling my nose. I honestly have no idea. I know you guys are probably looking at it and being like, what is going on? But I think a major thing about him is, since he does want to be a rapper, that will actually give him longevity in the space. Because the thing about people like Post Malone, if you don't notice, Post Malone's kind of fading. You know what I mean? Post Malone's kind of slightly fading away, and most of his following is really just in Europe at this point. And that's because when you come into this game as a rapper, you're now adherent to the black demographic of what is hot and what is cool. At the end of the day, black people are the tastemakers for what the world is, especially when it comes to music, because hip hop is the new pop music. All black people have to say is that something isn't cool and just give it time. And that's why you notice, like, he released an album, I'd say even like a week or two ago. I haven't heard really anything about it, anybody talking about anything on it. I haven't really even heard too many singles. I'm sure they're in some playlists and shit. But back in the day, you could not get away from White Iverson or Congratulations or Better Now or Psycho. You couldn't get away from those songs. You couldn't even get away from Sunflower or Circles. He's made a lot of great songs. He's a great artist, which is why I notice his absence. Your absence is something that you caused. You didn't even necessarily have to keep calling yourself a rapper, but you kind of played it as if hip hop is like a corny world that you don't want to be a part of, when hip hop is what made you. And since when hip hop is what made you saw that, they decided, all right, well, we're not going to fuck with you at all anymore. And once black people don't fuck with something, eventually white people stop fucking with it. And now these white people fuck with you and don't fuck with you. And now the only people you can get to listen to your music are people who don't even speak the goddamn language. So he's still going to be able to sell out. Don't get me wrong. He's still going to be able to sell out, and his numbers are still going to be great, and he's still going to have a great career because Europe is huge and you have your international fan base, and that's amazing. But yeah, here he's going to find a struggle. And I feel like if Jack Harlow sticks where he's at now, hip hop wise, as far as showing respect for it, really showing love for it, and continually being diligent about the art form, not just the lyrics but the sound as well too, and putting out an album with no features, beautiful. I think stuff like that is what's really gonna cause him a lot of longevity. And honestly, mark my words, I think in the next decade he's gonna be in that generational top 5 conversation, in the same way that Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick are in that top 5 generational conversation. I really do think he'll be there. Him saying he was, the best white rapper under Eminem is a little much, because I'm still a Mac Miller fan. But, I do love his hard work, and I love how hungry he is for that, because that's hip-hop. That's the thing. Hip hop isn't the lyrics, bro. Hip hop isn't the clothes. Hip hop is the fucking hunger, man. the hunger and the writing and the producing and the sitting there and wanting to get better and better and better every project and wanting to take over. That's hip hop. And it seems like he really has it. Seems like he really has it. All right. Well, that has been episode 44 of the False Prophets podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, guys. I will be putting out more and more episodes of these things. As I said, you guys have been amazing. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, because that's how it gets out there. I was doing really good numbers on these last couple of videos. I slacked off for about a week, and now my numbers are back to kind of being down. So if you could help me out, I'm going to be cutting this up into clips as well, too, to make it a little bit more digestible and cool for you guys. So make sure to check that out. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do everything you need to do. All right. I'll see you later. Peace.